SpaceX Starship 9 recap, and Flight 10 launch date. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much once again joining me for tea time. Today we have a little bit of misty morning, and that is it. Hope you're joining me with your cup of tea, maybe a cup of coffee, hanging out, talking tech, talking space, SpaceX, Starlink, Linux, all kinds of great tech. So today we're going to be talking about SpaceX. Obviously, we covered the launch, and well, it wasn't exactly what we wanted to see happen, but it is what it is. They're learning. The folks over there at SpaceX are learning a lot every single time they launch. So all in all, I don't think it was a bad test, but there's some issues I want to get into that I think that they really need to focus on, because this has been happening on multiple occasions now. So they did fix things from Flight 7 to Flight 8, which is great, but we now see Flight 9 and not having the same issues, but still rutting both the Starship and the Super Heavy. And I'll get into that before the end of this video. So today I'm going to go through what SpaceX has to say for themselves, and then I'll give you some behind the scenes, some of the stuff that we have found out so far. And then I'm going to give you a launch date for SpaceX's Starship 10. And you'll be surprised when this is going to be. So stay tuned for that before the end of this video. Before we get into this and what SpaceX has been talking about here, what they stated happened, I just want to say that if you enjoy the content, throw the video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not. If you are, thank you. Also, if you want to say thank you for all of my hard work, there's a little thank you button right down there. Click on that, give $1 or $2 if you like. If not, it's perfectly fine. Consider becoming a member of the channel. That would be even better. And if you want more SpaceX Starlink specific content, I've put together just under 500 videos just for you. I'll put a link here. Don't click on it yet, but there'll be a link there. When you're done watching this video, go check that out. It's a playlist of a whole bunch of helpful how-tos, tips, tricks, what to do, what not to do, what to buy, what not to buy, and of course the why behind all of it. Once again, nearly 500 videos on SpaceX Starlink over the last 40 plus months. Anyways, I hope you appreciate that. There's a lot of good stuff. So, all right, let's get right into this briefing. SpaceX says this: Starship's 9th flight test lifted off at 6:36 p.m. Central Time on Tuesday, May 27th from Starbase, Texas. The Super Heavy booster supporting the mission made the first ever reflight in the Starship program, having previously launched on Starship's 7th flight test in January 2025. That is really cool. This is from Flight Test 7, and they reused the entire Super Heavy, only not reusing 4 out of the 33 Raptor engines. That means 29 of those Raptor engines were the exact same engines used on Flight Test 7. That's a big milestone right there. It continues. The booster performed a full duration ascent burn with all 33 of its Raptor engines and separated from Starship's upper stage in a hot staging maneuver. During separation, Super Heavy performed the very first deterministic flip, followed by its boost back burn. Now, what does that mean? Deterministic flip. What did that mean? What does it do? So what that means is, in the past, it would just simply randomly flip over to come back to Earth. Well, this time it actually flipped over in a specific maneuver. So what they wanted pointed down was pointing down, what was pointing up, so on and so forth, right? They didn't have to go correct after the flip. They actually flipped deterministically, let's call it. That's what that all means. Super Heavy demonstrated its ability to fly at a higher angle of attack during its descent back to Earth. By increasing the amount of atmospheric drag on the vehicle, a higher angle of attack resulted in a slower descent speed, which in turn requires less propellant for its initial landing burn. I'll get to that in just a second. Getting real-world data on how the booster controlled its flight at this higher angle of attack will contribute to improved performance on future vehicles, including the next generation Super Heavy. So let me just explain this. So when they say a higher angle of attack, normally what would happen is the booster would come back down, almost like straight up and down. Let's call it 10 to 15% grade or angle. That's how it comes back in. Now, The reason being is it's really, the shape of it, let's say, is really able to cut through the atmosphere. And only the engine area will start glowing because of the atmospheric drag, where it's literally just heating up and you can see plasma pouring off. Well, instead of coming in like this, almost straight up and down at that 10, 15%, it came back at about, let's call it 20 to 40% angle, maybe even more. So it came back almost, let's call it a belly flop, okay? That's how it was coming back down. Why? Like they were stating, instead of coming in up and down like this, where it's traveling at a greater speed, by belly flopping like this, which reduces the speed by about 1,000 kilometers. So it's really coming in, let's say slower, much slower by belly flopping, but it puts a ton of stress on the vehicle, obviously. Instead of just cutting through the air, cutting through the atmosphere, it's kind of belly flopping. And you know, whenever you belly flop, let's say in a pool, in comparison to coming in perfectly head first, when you come in head first, you kind of just cut through everything. When you belly flop, it kind of hurts, right? So the same thing happened here. Super Heavy hurt. And ended up running and blowing up. Anyways, it continues. As it approached its designated splashdown area in the Gulf of America, Super Heavy relit its 13 center and middle ring Raptor engine. So everything lit up. There was no engines out. That's really good. Contact with the booster was lost shortly after the start of the landing burn, when it experienced a rapid, unscheduled disassembly, a RUD. Boom. Approximately 6 minutes after launch, bringing an end to the first reflight of Super Heavy booster, which is still amazing. What an amazing feat, once again, is that. This Super Heavy flew on Flight 7, and now Flight 9, it flew again. And what I thought was really a big deal was all 33 Raptor engines were lit. And like I said before, if you remember, 29 of those Raptor engines were reused. Only 3 new, and all 33 worked. They functioned perfectly. That's really a big, big milestone. Following the successful stage separation, the Starship's upper stage lit all 6 Raptor engines and performed a full duration ascent burn. That looked absolutely picture perfect. No flames in the attic or any of that nonsense like we saw in previous flights. So everything was looking good until it started leaking. Engines on Starship flew with mitigations in place following learning from the 8th flight test, including additional preload key joints and new nitrogen purge system and improvements to the propellant drain system. So that is a big, big improvement right across the board, but it still didn't help. During Starship's orbital coast, several in-space objectives were planned, including the first payload deployment from Starship and a relight of a single Raptor engine. Starship's payload bay door was unable to open, which prevented the deployment of 8 Starlink simulator satellites. That was horrible. That's what we were all looking for. I wanted to see the version 3, let's say dummy satellites being launched through that Pez dispenser, but the pay door just didn't open, or it opened partially is what I understood. And maybe it froze up. Maybe it was a mechanical error. Maybe it was a computer error, something. There was an error where that door wouldn't open fully. They ended up having to close it for re-entry. Not that it mattered. A subsequent attitude control error, basically was out of control, resulted in bypassing the Raptor relight and preventing Starship from getting into the intended position for re-entry. That's a very important statement, because not getting into that intended position like this coming through the atmosphere means that it wasn't able to test things like the new tiles, the tiles that instead of are passively cooled, the actively cooled tiles. It wasn't able to test the new fins or flaps at the top, the smaller flaps, the mini flaps, let's call them, that are sitting there angled at 140 degrees instead of 180 degrees. So there was a lot of things that they couldn't test, because it did start spiraling out of control. is what it is. Starship then went through an automated safing process to vent the remaining pressure to place the vehicle in the safest condition for re-entry. Contact with Starship was lost approximately 46 minutes into the flight, with all debris expected to fall within the planned hazard area in the Indian Ocean. Starship's 9th test flight marked a major milestone for reuse, with the first ever flight-proven Super Heavy booster launching from Starbase and once more returned Starship to space. Data review is underway, and new improvements will be implemented as work begins to prepare for the next Starship and Super Heavy vehicle flight. Developmental testing, by definition, is unpredictable, but every lesson learned marks progress towards Starship's goal of enabling life to become multiplanetary. So, once again, multiplanetary, we need to get to Mars, according to Elon Musk. Maybe not just Mars, maybe other planets too. So is it a possibility? Yeah, it is a possibility, and they're getting there. And once again, just hearing directly from the horse's mouth what they saw, what they know as of right now is really good information. And then of course, what we saw. Now, I really, like I said, wanted to see SpaceX Starlink dummy satellites be introduced into space, right? The Pez dispenser door opening up and those things launching out like Pez. That would have been great, because then we were now going to move closer to a point of time when they would start being able to put those version 3 satellites on orbit, and it would improve every SpaceX Starlink user's speed, latency, reliability, uptime, no waiting lists, no lines, no, let's say, excessive, according to a lot of people, additional fees that you have to pay due to, let's say, conditions not being ideal in certain areas. Basically, when there's too many people in a specific area, a certain region, they will implement like a 100 or 250, and I've seen as high as $500 additional fee. A congestion fee, let's call it. This is not because Elon Musk is trying to get rich on the few people that are in congested areas, you know, the extra 100, 250, or even as much as $500 fee. It's not for that. It's basically to slow onboarding. What does that mean? That means that they're trying to get less people to take on SpaceX Starlink, to sign up for SpaceX Starlink in certain areas where they just do not have the capacity currently available. So once again, once the version 3 satellites are on orbit, all of that is going to go away. Now, the Super Heavy not being caught. This was done once again on purpose, because this was a reuse of a Flight Test 7 rocket, the booster. Now, the reason they did what they did, and the reason it ended up blowing up, is because it came in once again, instead of, let's say, close to straight up and down, maybe let's 15% incline or decline, however you want to look at it. They brought that thing in like belly flop, 30%, 40% attack. So it was a major difference, major. And this causes a ton of drag and heat and vibration and just force on the vehicle, which ended up causing the RUD, or rapid unscheduled disassembly, of the Super Heavy. At the time when I saw this, I was thinking to myself, did they just pop its cork? You know, just bring it in super fast, and then before actually landing it, pull the trigger on it and blow it up? I don't think so. I think it blew up on its own, all right? I think that it was just, it rattled itself to death, and probably fuel was pouring out of it, mixed with the flames, and just boom, and that was like the end of it. That's what I'm gonna guess happened. We don't know as of yet, but that's what I think happened. The other thing that I was saying earlier was that the Raptor engine relight that they were trying to do in space is so very important, and they weren't able to do it again because obviously the vehicle, the craft, was out of control. When we were watching it, I was telling people, I said, it doesn't look good, guys. It doesn't look good. And the reason being is when we look at telemetry, the craft should be, let's say, idling and coasting like this, right? And instead, we saw it do this, and then back like this, and then point down, and then come back up. I said, listen, that's it. Game over. It's done. There's no way that that's going to fix itself. And I know there's some people on the feed. We had like 700 plus, I don't know, 800. We had a lot of people on for the test flight, and it was great. Right. It was great. Thank you for being here if you were here. Anyways, a lot of people said, we've seen that before. It's going to right itself. I'm like, no, it's just not. And what happened is when we saw the internals, everything looked good. And then we saw a lot of smoke. And what that was the venting. At that point, they knew that they lost control. All right. And once you lose control, at that point, they vent out all of the extra fuel propellant on board. So when it does re-enter, it's not like a massive bomb coming back, right? So that's what was going on. So it looked like clouds, but it really wasn't clouds. It was actually the venting, the off-gassing, they were getting rid of all the propellant. And the thing at the time, I believe at this point started tumbling, because what ended up happening was they ended up pulling off telemetry on the positioning, the angle, all right, of the Starship. Like about, I don't know, maybe let's call it about 5-10 minutes before it ended up blowing up. It ended up blowing up around, 46 minutes or so into it. So they took it off. So you couldn't see it doing this deal anymore and flipping. Why they took it off? Probably so that people don't see that, right? And be like, what is going on here? This isn't right. So that was the case with that. The other thing is I was looking to see if there was anything that Elon Musk said specific to what's going on. And is there a way that we can glean some good tidbits of knowledge from what he states? And I do this all the time. I'll search through Reddit, and I'll also get into Elon Musk's feed and SpaceX's feed and a lot of other people that are really close to what's going on over there to see if I can get some insider info, let's just call it. Well, I found a quote from Elon, and it's really telling to what is going on and when the next flight will be. And I told you I was going to tell you this by the end of the video, and we got to it. So this is what he said on X, quote, Starship made it to the scheduled ship engine cutoff. So big improvement over last flight. Also, no significant loss of heat shield tile during the ascent. Now, this is important. No heat tiles were just like falling off during the ascent. So heat tiling was doing really well. That's a good point. Leaks caused loss of main tank pressure during the coast and re-entry phase. Loss of pressure. Very similar to what we heard in the past, right? Where there's a leak, there's propellant leaks. What is going on with the infrastructure that has changed when it was slightly, let's say, things moved to hold 25% more propellant? Something happened between Block 1 to Block 2 that is causing leaking. What is that? That's something that they need to figure out. Lots of good data to review. Launch cadence for the next three flights will be faster at approximately 1 every 3 to 4 weeks. And there you have it, 3 to 4 weeks. This was on what, the 27th or whatever. So let's call it the end of the month of May. That means before the end of the month of June, we should see test flight 10. That is big news. That is big news. And then the next one, 11, the following month. And then the next one, 12, the following month. The cadence is going to accelerate. Why is this? Do you remember just a week or so ago, I told you that the FAA not only approved Flight 9's flight, but also 24 or 25, I think it was, flights per year? They originally had 5. Now it's 5 times more. 25 flights per year. So now, of course, the cadence can increase to every month. We'll just give them 12. They can do 2 per month and still have a 1 left over, right? So this is really going to increase the speed at which they test these things. So this is really good for us because then we're going to be able to see a lot more of these test flights. And hopefully, once again, we get to a point where they can deposit SpaceX's Starlink version 3 satellites on orbit. And once again, that will make our lives better. Lower latency, faster speeds, no more cost for being in a congested area. No more lines, no more nothing. Everything will just be better, better, better. Also, we're going to see gigabit speeds. Now, that might not be for you and I, but it's going to be commercially available very soon. I know that they've already tested it and it works. Gigabit from space. Unbelievable. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. If you have, throw the video a thumbs up like I said before. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so. And finally, head over to my website, jchristina.com. Check out my merch. See if there's something there you like. Look at my tees, my shirts, my books, all the rest of my stuff over there. If there's something you like, please pick it up and help support me and my family. Many blessings to you and your family. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay connected, and we'll see you next time. Take care, guys. Love you all.